Off to our next speaker, and it seems the world is not getting simpler. That was quantum computing, and we have AI, and let's see how the world looks like in 25 years from now. But let me take you back 25, maybe 27 years. Do you remember this nice movie called Toy Story? That was 1995. This little guy with a cowboy hat that everybody loved. 1995. It was, in fact, the first fully computer animated movie. And 27 years later, that was 1995, right? And 27 years later, Midjourney in July 2022 was initially released. 18 months later, we got Sora. We have text to video. So I am super excited to understand what AI means for media production. And, well, let's ask our next guest, who knows best around all these tools and what's going to happen in the media world. Our next guest has been producing award-winning visual effects since 1996, animations, new media for films, television, and marketing in New York City. As an accomplished creative and technical leader, he leverages AI technologies and advanced workflows to optimize content production. And he's president of Mechanism Digital. Welcome on stage, Lucien Harriot. Hey, Lucien.
Hey, good morning. Thank you. Well, the sun's coming up here in New York City right now. My head is buzzing from all the stuff that we're learning today. So amazing. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us. Yes, and absolutely, we completely appreciate, I really appreciate that you guys are getting up so early, you guys based in the US. So good morning, New York. Let's make this the ABC Good Morning Show. So you're on, Lucien. And I have an initial question for you, and that is, in which year will we see the first fully AI-produced Hollywood major blockbuster? What do you think?
Blockbuster. Wow. That's a fun question. So we currently make blockbuster films using AI today, but that's not new. But I think what you're asking is a little more interesting. About 6 months ago, there was a full-length film made with all generated AI imagery. But after seeing the trailer, I don't really need to see the rest of the film yet. If this is a test to be produced solely by AI, from a prompt to screen, written and generated, I'd make a wild guess about 5 years for the level of production to be similar to current live action blockbusters. But it may not rake in the blockbuster dollars, because I don't know if people are going to be watching or paying to see films if they can all generate their own films at home. So that'll be an interesting twist on the whole industry. But in short, I'm pretty sure we're going to start seeing full-length, maybe Japanese anime films in the next year, because they're the easiest to produce, while anime has also been extremely popular training libraries on. So, but fun to see what happens for sure.
Well, 5 years? Yeah, 5 years. I mean, even 5 years, that's around the corner in my view. Right, Robert? What do you think?
I do think so. Well, I agree. 5 years.
5 years? It's around the corner. It's around the corner.
Live action?
Well, not feature movies, but as you mentioned in the introduction, we'll see clips and scenes generated by AI, and it will be edited in the actual live action movies.
Well, I guess so, but hey,
who am I to say?
Exactly, Lucien. So
expert here.
Exactly, Lucien. The stage is yours. We're looking forward to a keynote.
Fantastic. Yeah, let me show you what's going on here. I'm going to share. Hopefully, y'all can see this. And I have to apologize that I'm going to be going through a whole lot of stuff really fast. And I think I hope you don't mind getting the big overview very quick. So, as you all heard, how do I go forward here? So we're Mechanism Digital. We do film and TV shows and visual effects and stuff like that. And that's how I look at generative artificial intelligence, or machine learning, a lot of people say. And this is what we call diffusion models, which are recognizing patterns across enormous sets of data to generate derivative content, which simulates creativity. Now, this was an ability previously considered uniquely human, but now there's a big question. Are we just computers, or are the computers becoming more human? We'll see. So let me cruise fast through this. We'll talk about diffusion models. You all have heard about OpenAI, who came up with Sora last week. Unless you're living under a rock, that's amazing. These are a bunch of the other models out there. I hope we can share this deck because all of these brown words are actually links to all of these things. And I hope everybody's interested in discovering. Midjourney, we've heard a lot about in the news. Ideogram's really good with text. Amazon's coming out with their own. Adobe Firefly. This one's important because this one's copyright safe. So for people in the industries that are generating content that they want to use publicly, this might be a better option than some of the other ones, which we're not sure if those are safe or not. So I'm going to take you from the start all the way through what's happening these days. A reverse diffusion process is effectively the training model or a computer model that's been trained finds patterns and noise which match a text prompt that's put in by the user through many iterations, and you start to get a picture. The prompt here might have been a castle in the mountains. So this is how the computer finds these images in the noise that it's given. So these diffusion models are trained with billions of images, that's with a B, and then their metadata, which might be the keywords or the descriptions of these images. They're spending about $100 million doing this, and then it finds the patterns in the noise. And you can also add in an image into the noise, which helps it to find the pattern that you kind of want to encourage. So the user input is a text prompt, which is a description, the optional image, and then the aspect ratios, like 1:1 for Instagram, 4:3 Facebook, film is 16:9, or TikTok. These are important because when you ask for a certain aspect ratio, it will create that aspect ratio, but more importantly, it goes back to the model and it only looks at images in that aspect ratio. And that's how it's able to create composition that works very well. The output should get still images in seconds or video in a few minutes. So this is a simple prompt here. A Coca-Cola bottle in the style of, let's say, an artist. And this artist could be from this list, a Van Gogh Coca-Cola bottle, a Jackson Pollock, right? You get extra credit if you could match up all of these artists with all of these pictures here. This is the one at the far right here, down at the bottom, Greg Rutkowski. He's kind of internet famous right now because he was one of the first people to be very vocal about his images being added into these libraries, and they were sort of stealing his IP. That's still a debate that's happening. We'll see what happens. But you might put in an image. I didn't create this. We created about 99% of everything in here. I did not do the Pope wearing Balenciaga, but I think this is a great example where it goes out and finds a whole bunch of pictures of the Pope and a whole bunch of pictures of Balenciaga and puts them together. And that's the same thing that happened with all these Coke bottles and these art. It's a really good model at putting things together. So we're going to talk about prompt crafting really quickly. We could put in a very simple prompt, a horrific bathroom. This is kind of a funny horror angle I went on. We could ask it for a 16:9 image, and we get this image here of this sort of rusting bathtub, or a 1:1, and we get this creepy guy who's in this other bathroom falling apart. So the same prompt generated different images because the aspect ratio or the shape of the image was different. So that was a very simple prompt. We might put in a very complicated prompt because we want something a bit more detailed. So this prompt was actually written by ChatGPT. Other ones called Poe or G Prompter can help you to write prompts. I'll show you some other tricks and tips. So this is a really long prompt. Well, in fact, only the first bunch of maybe 60 words or 380 characters are actually looked at. After that, they are looked at, but they become less and less important. So we want to sort of front load our prompt as much as we can. But if we're going to do that, then we probably should just pick out all of the important words. We can leave out all the us and thes and little connecting words because that doesn't really matter to the prompt. What's happening with the prompt is the computer is going back, or the model's going back and finding these words that were in the metadata or the description of the words in the library that it was looking at. So the word the might show up in a bunch of words or a bunch of images, but they're not really important to generating the image. So again, the more up towards the top are more important, but here's a little trick. If you put parentheses around, am I still there?
You're back, but your presentation is gone. You might need to reshare your screen. But you only gone for like
where was I?
Just a second ago. You were basically cut off just a second. You were just at the
yeah.
yes,
Okay.
exactly,
Yes.
right there.
Fantastic. So you can put in also camera descriptions like wide shot, f-stop, extremely detailed. So and 4K and 8K, I think this is important to look at. This doesn't mean your image is going to output 4K or 8K, but it goes back and looks at images that are 4K or 8K, which might be higher quality. On camera descriptions, we ask for a wide angle, ultra wide angle. It doesn't mean this is what the model understands it's going to produce for you, but it goes back to all the images in the library or the training model that had the words wide angle. So if you ask for a wide angle, it's going to look at a bunch of wide angles. And it's probably going to give you a wide angle because that was the words in the prompt and in the training model relative to those images. So we use this for films. We did a film called Breathe, where all of the oxygen and water were gone from New York City, and we needed to come up with some ideas the director needed to respond to. This was the Brooklyn Bridge over the East River. All the water is gone. We were able to put this into Dall-E, the prompt, Brooklyn Bridge over dry riverbed, and we got all these images, which was amazing because we could get a lot of quick feedback from the director. Now, once we did this, we couldn't use this in the film. It's not high enough resolution, and we wanted the camera to move, so we have to go back and build 3D models and animate it in our traditional sense. So it's been really great for doing a lot of brainstorming and very quick ideas in the beginning, sort of artificial creativity, if you will. Also, we do a lot of medical education and marketing. So this is across the top are these living cells, and down at the bottom are these deadly viruses. So this could be used for medical education or maybe for a sci-fi thriller. So it's amazing what kind of images we can create and just get a lot of inspiration. Even storyboards. So again, if this deck can be shared, you can just copy this professional storyboard, and you replace subject, action, and type of shot and camera angle, and it will give you images to a storyboard. Now, it'll only give you single images, and each of the images might not look like the one next to it in terms of the style. So that's you can't just get a whole storyboard out of it. You're only going to get a single image. And the prompt doesn't understand the story. It only understands what you ask for it on a specific image. So we still need the director to direct what the story is going to be. Down at the bottom, I have a car chase happening, but it's very confusing who's chasing who because the model doesn't really understand what the action is in this particular case. We'll get into video in a little bit. Brand inspiration, very easy to get great stuff. We do a lot of work for a lot of pharmaceutical companies. I didn't even have to enter what the colors were. I just said AstraZeneca brand colors, and it understood that AstraZeneca's got this purple and sort of yellow gold here, and it created images, whether they're photos or more illustrated styles, really amazing ways to get lots of quick stuff. Real-time prompting, this is new. This is because the computers are getting so fast. This is me, I recorded myself typing this information in. So it's a building in New York City, and then I say it's 1940, so it starts to get old, and then I say I want it street level, tell it I want it to be down near Times Square. Hey, how about let's make it New Year's Eve at night, and then let's give everybody umbrellas because it's raining outside. So again, these are a bunch of links. You can go check this stuff out. The quality isn't super high, but you get really fast feedback so that when once you finally get to the image that you like, you can take this and put it into one of the higher quality image generators and get a really beautiful image. So really great way to get fast stuff very quickly. Refining prompts. So I put this really long prompt in here. It was sort of these cars racing against each other on a road. This was a lot of fun. This was with Dall-E and ChatGPT, which do a really great job with images. And instead of rewriting the prompt, typically we copy the prompt, we change a couple words, we paste the prompt back in. It's a very iterative process for the human as well. But in the case of ChatGPT or Dall-E, I can say thank you. I always say thank you because someday when the AI overlords take over, I hope that they have some, they're easy on me. But I can say, please revise the image, but make the Firebird red. Now, the car changed a little bit, but it's amazing that we can start talking to these models and getting changes if we're speaking to an artist as opposed to very carefully entering these things in again and again. Then I also said, hey, make it a complete spectacular crash between the cars just for the fun of it. So it understands what that might look like. It's not particularly accurate. You can see that all the cars still have their tires, but there seems to be about 8 tires flying around in the scene. So it's kind of funny, but not always accurate, but lots of fun. This is fun. This is just purely fun. Let's make it more. If you've seen this, so I asked for her to create an image of an overly caffeinated teen, and I got this funny picture. And I said, well, what if we were just to ask it to make it more? This is something that's a fun experiment you can do. I said, make it more, and it made the caffeinated teen even more caffeinated. So I said, hey, you know what? Let's make it more. And now he's really caffeinated. Is it possible to make this teen even more? Make it more. Now he's got caffeine all around him. He's a caffeinated teen. Make it more again. It seems like our teen has reached coffee nirvana at this point. Let's try one more time. He's an all-encompassing coffee everywhere. And of course, make it more. And now he's powering the solar system with coffee. Let's do it one more time. That's it. And this is now our teen has become one with the caffeinated coffee cosmos. So this is just kind of a fun thing where you can just talk about, you could ask for very specifics. I was just curious to see what happens when we make this outrageous. So input images we'll talk about. The text prompt here was a human skull in a cinematic style. That was the image on the left. But then I added a photograph that I put in. This is I took with a real camera in the real world, and I put in 50% of the photograph. So you can imagine this 50% photograph looks like a bunch of noise here, which influences the prompt. So when the prompt and this noise image are added together, this equals this image here, which is the skull wearing a pink hat. So you can see how it's followed the outline of the woman's eyes and made the eye sockets. So this is a way that you can start to create interesting art between different art types. In this case, on the bottom, it was 25% the image. So we got more of this sort of ghoulish looking guy, but you can see how it's still following it. Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, they also offer in Photoshop inpainting. So these red areas are where I masked, and I said, please replace this with fantasy fire. And it's added in this fire around the eyes and the background. And it doesn't just add it in the circles like a mask in Photoshop. It affects the creation of the image. So things are sort of blended in and they sort of work together. So a great way to create stuff here. We can do style transfers, but the original image is mine, and the fusion image might look like it's blurred. I asked, what will I look like when I'm 80 or 120? So I get some, I don't know how accurate this is, but I'll let you know when I get to be 120 how accurate this was. Also this images. We did style transfers to create all of the headshots of our employees on our website. This was a lot of fun. This you asked for a modern Disney style, Pixar style, and we got these images here. Now, we didn't just have to ask for this one time. It took over 1,000 images before we were finally happy with what we wanted. So that's one of the issues we're having with AI right now, is that it's very easy to create an image, but does it create the image that we want? And the iterative images just take such a long time. What we are using a lot now, Topaz Labs is a great tool. So this is, I was on set with Anne Hathaway, Annie, she likes to be called, in a movie called Eileen. I took this photo and I wanted to zoom in a bit, but it's very blurry. But Topaz has a great tool which can sort of up-res this stuff. It's actually going out and finding pictures of eyebrows, pictures of noses, pictures of hair, and it's adding them in because this information was not in there. It's not finding the information, it's matching it based on what it knows in the library. Want to zoom in a little bit more, see what happens. Her eye is getting a little creepy and these eyelashes are doing some strange things. So if you push it too far, it won't give you quite amazing results, but you can kind of take what you need from it and not. But considering what it used to look like, that's pretty darn good. But it recognized a person and it replaces it with pieces of persons. So for fun, I took Lara Croft from the Tomb Raider video game, 1996. This was a 640 by 480, if you remember back in the old computer days, and I did an up-res of that. Well, what it did is ended up sharpening the edges because it didn't recognize that there was a person here. But if we bring this into something like Stable Diffusion or Mage or Magnifica, we put the original image, we do diffusion 50%, and you can kind of, if you squint, that all starts to look like a real human. And it replaces it. I have to put in a prompt, or it can sometimes recognize the image to itself, and it puts in its own prompt. Highly detailed image of Lara Croft Tomb Raider 4K. So we get a much better looking image. She's a little distorted, and we'll have to go back and edit this a little bit. So what we do is we crop the head out and then we do an image based on the head, because not only does the model look at aspect ratios, but it looks at the content. If it sees only a single person's profile or photograph of their face, it will go out and find photographs of faces as opposed to full bodies. So we did this, added her head, did a little Photoshop, and then I re-imaged it back into Mage, and all of a sudden she's much better looking. So this is just a few minutes I was able to create that low res to a high res image. And the question is this really what Laura Croft looks like? I don't know. Here's an example with my own image. This is a low-res pixelated image. And so I put my own face in here and I get this guy. I don't know who this guy is, but this is what the model thinks that I should look like. You know, it got all sort of my whiskers and my general face head shape, which is amazing. It's not exactly me, but it's so if it needs to be a very specific person, and if there's a lot of that person's images out on the internet, then it can match. But there's not enough images on the internet for me to have been matched. So another good tool, if we go to stock images, I feel bad for stock houses because you can just take one of their images and put it in and get a derivative of something that looks similar to it. We might do this for brainstorming ideas, but at the moment, once we build this and if the client likes it, we have to go and build this in 3D because we create flying through the body type medical images. So I see somebody asked if there's logo design space. Ideogram is actually a great tool. That's up on one of the first pages, and there's a link to Ideogram, which does text. Text is getting better in all the models right now, actually. Ideogram, which just happened to be the first. So this is our studio down in New York City in the lower left, and I asked for sort of a high-end redesign, and it created these images. This is a 360 image. I didn't ask for it to be 360. I'm not even sure that the image understood it was 360, but it went out and probably found a lot of images that kind of looked 360. So this is our 360 image. I asked for another super high-end futuristic redesign. I think we're going to do our studio like this next year. Not really. Maybe we're going to do it more like an underwater choral fantasy. So you can take these things in so many different directions. Really quite amazing to see the creativity, or this artificial creativity, we call it. So prompt inspiration. If you haven't written any prompts, go to Prompt Hero and you can search other people's prompts. People share these things. I searched the word robot. It gave me this prompt down here. Then I also input these other images. So Pose Maniacs and Magic Poser, these are actually artist reference tools. They're not really AI tools, but I was able to get this man in this position and this woman in this position, and then I re-imaged them in probably Mage or Stable Diffusion, and it gave me these two robots down at the bottom. You can see that the colors of their body are similar, and the position is similar. Also, the white background and even the shadow, it matches, right? I don't know, the shadow may not be perfect down there, but it's pretty darn good. So it's a great way to get an image in the position that you want. You can actually, in Magic Poser, you can position a character any way you want and have that character then posed in your AI. Another approach is called a ControlNet. So in this case, we put the image of the woman in here, and it finds the pose based on what it understands of humans, and that pose it applies to the output image. In this case, it does not apply the colors, it only applies the pose of a woman playing on the moon. Other control types are depth, edges, normals. These are all tools now we're finding we can put into our toolbox to create these images. This was an example of a movie that we did recently called Rob Peace with what's his name? Chiwetel Ejiofor. There was a guy, they decided to re-edit it, and his hair style changed in the film, and they decided to sort of swap some scenes, and we had to switch his hair from dreads, the way it was shot here, into cornrows. So we brought him into Stable Diffusion, or no, Mage, I think, and we asked for cornrows. Now his face didn't match, but all we cared about was his hair. So we got his, using the pose can do faces and hands and bodies. We were able to get his hair, and we were able to replace that into the shot. And we saved the film with AI. So otherwise we would have had to have hand painted or built a 3D model of hair, which is not the easiest thing. A depth map might be used. So this woman on the left, using this depth map, it's kind of like an alpha channel, but everything closer to the camera is white, everything further from the camera is black. So using Kermit the Frog, Saddam Hussein, Sailor Moon, Emma Watson, look at the wrinkles on the arm. It matched the wrinkles on her arm, and these characters all have the same wrinkles on their arm. It's amazing the lines that it can follow. Here's a depth map in action. In Maya, we build a 3D model, very simple, using a depth map from Zoe Depth, Photoshop. Then we bring this into, let's say, Mage or Stable Diffusion. We create an image. We can project this image back onto this 3D model, and then we can use this as a camera projection. We can sort of fly through it a little bit. It's more of a background technique. So these are matte paintings, but they become moving matte paintings. 3D models from depth. So this is an image generated. This could be a photo, doesn't have to be an AI image. This is the depth image that's generated. It understands what's far away from the camera, what's close to the camera. We can get these easily from 3D rendered models, but getting them from photos is purely the computer understanding what's going on. From this depth image, it creates a 3D mesh. We can see the polygons down here and the parallax in here. Now this becomes a sort of background image that we can use as a nice moving background image. So great for films, TV shows. Currently, a lot of AI is kind of low res, and so we have to work on getting that stuff higher res. ControlNet, this is also another one with shapes and composition. So the prompt, the puppy's running towards the viewer, and we used an image of text. I'm not sure if you can read what that image says, but it can create subliminal advertising. So if you can't read the message, I look forward to getting emails from you later on. So variations through text descriptions. Now I'm putting it back into the computer. I sketch a logo. I put it into Bing, and I asked, please describe in detail this sketch. It gave me this long description of what this looks like. Then I put that back into a GenAI program, and it generated these 6 logos down below it, right? So they're all kind of circular. They all have a coffee cup, some beans around it. And this is an amazing way to get, this was all ideogram. Somebody asked about text earlier. So this is an amazing way to get variations of logos. So this was only based on the text. The ones on the right side, those are using ControlNets. This is probably the edge detection ControlNet. And so it actually gives us the actual beans in the right place with the different looks. So lots of great ways to get lots of different styles. Once we get our director or client that likes what a particular version, then we typically have to rebuild it ourselves. So it doesn't output the final for us. So let's talk about LoRa models. These are basically small AI models that are laid on top of the larger models. Some people might remember Lensa. This came out a year or so ago where you put a bunch of headshots into it, and it could create a nice headshot for yourself. What it's doing is using the information it learns about you or any object. It could be a dog, it could be a handbag, and it builds a model to understand what you want, but then it uses all of its knowledge or learning of good lighting, good clothing, and most of it's been trained on beautiful people because that's what's on the internet, right? So the first rule of AI is that your avatar is always better than looking than you are. So Runway does this, Astria does this. Usually you have to put in about 15 images. The one with the dog at the bottom, we didn't do this. I just love this example. Somebody put in a picture of their dog. They probably put in 15 or 20 pictures of their dog. And then they ask for a bear, panda, koala, hippo. This is what their dog would look like as a hippo. So much fun. But once, I should say, once you put in the model, it's not permanently embedded into the model that everybody else is using. So some audio tools, not going to get into this too much, but we can see I took this picture of myself and it will actually generate motion. Let me play this.
Hey, this video of me was generated by AI. It looks and sounds like me, and I did it in seconds using Emulate Me. Create yours now.
So it did the mouth shapes, it did the blinking, it did the head moving. So this is another AI tool here. This one you won't hear. But one of the problems is that we're not getting a lot of emotion out of it. And I think that's what's going to hold back the blockbusters from being there too soon. We did see in Sora that things are looking kind of emotional. The question is, what was, there was no emotion that was specifically asked for, and did it line up with the people's words? I don't know. So check out all these links. A lot of fun stuff here. And so a lot of tools that we're using every day. We can remove backgrounds. You don't necessarily need green screen anymore. It's not perfect yet. And if you're familiar with this stuff, it's actually chopping off all the little hairs around the cat. So it's not perfect, but I think I can see a world pretty soon where green screens are no longer necessary. You can replace a background anytime you want to. Or these relighting functions are very interesting, where because of the depth, it can actually calculate where a new light would apply and affect an image. So it's not just highlighting the whole image, but making almost new shading. I wouldn't call it shadows, but new shading. And this is based on the depth and the normal maps that it's able to calculate. This person doesn't exist. This was that imposter of me, but I was able to pull these depth maps based on image learning. This is real-time stuff, like I showed you with the typing before. There's also drawing. We can draw stuff in real time. This is a web camera that I'm using. Able to take this prompt of zombie or Walter White in Breaking Bad. So we're going to see a lot of interesting new, TikTok sharing. These tools are going to become more and more used by the consumer. In the lower left, I'm drawing a picture of this sports car. It's the world's horriblest drawing of a sports car, but you can see on the right that it's generating a nice picture of a sports car. It's very quick because it's real time, and then I put it back into Creo UpRes, and it gave me this nice, kind of looks like a Porsche, I guess, here. Or this doodle of an ice cube melting on a wooden table, and then it outputs this beautiful image with reflections and lighting. This is Stable Diffusion.
Lucien, this is just amazing. The only thing is we're running out of time, and I only have one question. Can you make it more, please? We'd really love to invite you on a separate session, because this is just amazing what you've just been showing us. But unfortunately, really, the time just flew by, and with respect to the other speakers. That's why I'm unpolitely interrupting you, which really didn't mean, because it was just amazing.
Necessary. Please share this deck if you can, and anybody can ask me questions.
Yes, absolutely. Just maybe one last question. How much time a week do you spend on exploring new tools, new solutions in the AI space?
I spend probably 8 to 16 hours. So I don't watch TV anymore. I just play with AI. So it's, I love it. I'm addicted.
Amazing, Lucien. Seriously, that was really, really great. I mean, like, really seeing this hands-on what you can do.
It was almost finished, so thank you.
But we'll share your slides, Lucien. Thanks so much. Greetings to New York City.
I look forward to the rest of the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And over to Eddie for the next speaker.